I was 17 in the fall of 1948 when I enrolled as a freshman in the College of Pharmacy at the University of Iowa. I'd grown up in Dyersville, then a town of about 2,000. There were 25 in my high school graduating class. Going to the university was a big deal then. 3 years after World War II had ended, there were big changes on campus. There wasn't enough room for the students. There weren't enough classrooms. They had non-traditional students. The GI Bill changed the whole approach to college. I lived in Hillcrest, men's dormitory only at that time, all 4 years when I was a student at Iowa. I had a board job. The rooms were crowded. I had a double room, but there were 3 of us living in the room. And that was true of all the double rooms in Hillcrest in those days. We had a maid who made our beds, cleaned our room every day except Saturday and Sunday. We had a change of linens on Monday. It's different today. It's important to know that my roommate, Bart Marshall, from Hampton, Iowa, my sophomore year, was engaged to be married to Eula May, who taught school in Muscatine. So he was gone most weekends. My other roommate was Harold Gray. He's a graduate student in geography, and he was from Kansas City. Bart, was gone on weekends. Harold and I went out once in a while with some nurses from our college of nursing students who lived in West Lawn. We didn't have cars, and they were located on the west side of the river. My thoughts about school were not what were ideal. I wasn't a very good student and had way too much fun, was way too interested in intramural athletics and what have you. So when we get to final week, my sophomore year in 1950, I'm studying for a botany test on a warm, beautiful May afternoon. Botany was not one of my favorite subjects. There's a knock on my door. And who's knocking? It's Bill Wallace from Manchester, Iowa, 3 doors down the hall, student in liberal arts, fraternity man. I was an independent in the College of Pharmacy, so Bill and I didn't see much of each other except in the dormitory. He said, "Bob, Marilyn Duckett, a girl you know from my hometown, Manchester, is interested in going on a picnic out to Lake McBride. She's tired of studying. Would you like to join us?" And I said, "Well, I could be enticed." I said, "I do not have anybody to ask." So Marilyn Duckett walked the halls of Courier Hall, and she found this girl. Her name was Ann Dewig, who was willing to be my blind date, and that's all I knew about her. Ann Dewig from Emmitsburg, Iowa. Bill and I bought a few supplies and rode over to Courier. Bill had a nice Buick. His father was a car dealer, so that made it a great day. We got over to Courier Hall, and the girls came out. Marilyn came out first, and she's followed by this gorgeous creature. I was mesmerized, and I still am. There was a hint of auburn in her hair. I noticed the great legs and the beautiful smile. So we had a great time in the picnic. I can tell you that the water was really cold when we were swimming at Lake McBride. We roasted hot dogs on sticks and drank a lot of beer. I was impressed at Ann's ability to handle the hot dogs and the beer. So then, we had a great time that night, and the next day, we had 3 days left before we were going home for the summer. We saw each other all 3 days during final week, went home for the summer, and then on June 25th, 1950, the world changed. We'd been writing letters. My mother was quite impressed to see a letter from Emmitsburg every day, and she noticed I was using stationery. But the North Koreans invaded South Korea on June 25th, 1950. Everybody expected mobilization. If you were in the proper age ranks, you were expecting to go back into service or go into service maybe for the first time. Well, as a last fling, 5 young men from Dyersville decided to take advantage of the offer Ann had arranged to spend a week at Okoboji, the last week of July. So some of you people in the room know about the Manhattan Beach Resort. That's the place that we stayed. Ann stayed at the Kelly Cottage, where she'd been a babysitter for many years, which was on Manhattan Beach also. And guess what? It was a beautiful week. Fishing wasn't very good. We learned to sail a little bit, which was a new experience for the boys from Dyersville. And right next door was a cottage full of young ladies from Omaha. So we had a great time, a lot of hot dogs and a lot of beer. A month later, we're back on campus. And then I'd been doing some soul searching about my future. So Ann taught me to really study, and she encouraged me to do things like going to the plays and the music recitals, the sporting events. So we saw a lot of interesting things and began to really appreciate what the university could do and what a big world was out there. We graduated in 1952. I got drafted immediately. 2 months after I graduated, I was in the Army. When I finished basic training, I was one of the lucky ones. I got orders to go to Germany as opposed to Korea. War wasn't going very well over there then. We got married before we shipped out to Germany because Ann could come join me in Germany, and we had that arrangement. She was able to spend the last 6 months of my 17-month tour with me in Germany. When we got out of the Army, we came to Anamosa, Iowa. I worked at the Cuba drugstore, staff pharmacist there. Wilson Cuba, an Iowa alum, taught me a great deal about pharmacy, taught me a really lot about community. We had 8 children while we lived in Anamosa for 11 years, and Ann was busy as a mother and a community activist. Our oldest child was very sickly. We spent a lot of time at University Hospital, and with those trips and the closeness of Anamosa to Iowa City, we frequently came to Iowa City. We got well acquainted with younger faculty members, particularly in the College of Pharmacy, and maintain that relationship today. So it's just natural to come to Iowa City. We've been doing it for years. 1965, we bought the Hinckley Drugstore in Maquoketa, town of 6,000. Changed the name of Hinckley Drugstore to Osterhaus Pharmacy. Had 2 more children, and remembered or began to realize that the great education I got at Iowa, that Ann got at Iowa, allowed me to practice my profession for over 50 years. It also taught me how to provide for my family and 10 children. They've all graduated from college. We have 5 Hawkeyes. Our kids have 60 years of college behind them. They have 7 or 8 advanced degrees. We have 3 grandchildren who have already graduated from Iowa. We've got 1 who's a student here today, and we've got some relatives in the room that are here also. We're very pleased to note that as we've been immersed in our community, we've been successful in developing this magnificent partnership with the university. We're doing something we call Layers of Maquoketa. That is an examination of who we have been as a community and who we might be with university involvement. It's a great experiment. We think that this process can be emulated in other communities around Iowa and move the project forward. This has allowed us just splendid opportunities of sharing with the magnificence of this university. So none of this would have happened unless I had answered the knock on the door of room C343 in May of 1950. Thank you.